Okay, let's talk about something almost everyone does, but nobody talks about nose picking. But, this isn't just about some social faux pas. We're about to dig into the surprising and sometimes pretty serious medical story that's hiding right under our noses, literally.
So, here's the big question we're really tackling. The numbers show that a huge majority of us do it. So, if it's that common, where's the line? When does this super common private little habit cross over into being a real and even dangerous medical problem? All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll see just how universal this habit really is. Then, we'll pinpoint exactly when it becomes a problem. We're going to break down the vicious cycle that keeps it going, look at some of the wild complications, and most importantly, talk about how to actually break that cycle for good.
So, first things first, let's just get a sense of scale here. Just how widespread is this thing that we're all told is so gross?
Get a load of this number: 91%. A study back in 1995 found that 91% of adults flat out admitted to picking their nose. And what's really funny is that only about 75% of those same people thought that other people did it. It just shows you this massive gap between what we all do in private and what we think is normal. And this social taboo is nothing new. This quote here is from an etiquette book for kids from the 15th century. That's right, we've been telling each other don't pick your nose for over 500 years. And that stigma, that shame, is exactly why a real disorder can hide right out in the open. Okay, let's get to probably the most crucial distinction we're going to make today: the difference between just having a habit and having an actual clinical disorder. So the doctors have fancy words for this, of course. Rhinotillexis, that's just the basic act. Simple enough. But when they tack on mania at the end, it becomes rhinotillexomania, and that's the disorder. So the difference isn't what you're doing, it's all about the why and the how often and whether it's actually causing problems in your life. So what are those signs that the line's been crossed? Well, it really comes down to these four big red flags. Is it taking up a ton of your time? Like more than an hour a day? Is it making you anxious or causing you to avoid people? Is it actually causing physical damage like nosebleeds? And maybe the biggest one, have you tried to stop but you just can't? If you're nodding along to these, we're not talking about a simple habit anymore. Medically speaking, rhinotillexomania falls into a category called body-focused repetitive behaviors, or BFRBs. And this is a really key piece of the puzzle because it puts it in the same family as other conditions you've probably heard of, like compulsive hair pulling or skin picking. This shows it's not just some weird quirk. It's part of a recognized group of disorders related to OCD.
All right, now let's pop the hood and look at the engine that drives this thing. Why is it so incredibly hard for someone with this condition to just stop? Well, the answer is a really powerful and kind of sneaky feedback loop.
Yeah, this really isn't about a lack of willpower. It's more like a trap, a physical and psychological trap, where the act of picking actually creates the very thing that makes you want to pick again. And once you understand this loop, the whole disorder starts to make a lot more sense. And this lays it out perfectly. Look, it starts with something psychological. Maybe you're stressed or just bored. That leads to the initial picking. But that picking damages the super delicate skin inside your nose. As your body tries to heal that damage, it forms scabs and crusts. And here's the twist. Those crusts now become a brand new, purely physical trigger. You feel like there's something in there that needs to come out, so you pick again to remove it, which of course causes more damage, which creates more scabs, and around it goes. The cycle just feeds itself. Okay, so we get the mechanism now, but what are the real stakes? What kind of actual physical harm can this cycle lead to? Well, the answer might be a little more serious than you think. This chart breaks it down pretty clearly. It starts with things that seem kind of minor, like frequent nosebleeds. But if it keeps going, it can escalate to serious structural damage, like literally creating a hole through the cartilage in your nose. And in the most extreme, and thankfully rare cases, it can be life-threatening. We're talking about bacteria from the nose getting into the bloodstream and causing huge problems like sepsis or even meningitis. To really understand how serious this can get, let's look at a real case. There was a 66-year-old woman who kept ending up in the hospital with these terrible multi-organ infections. Doctors were throwing the strongest IV antibiotics at her, but nothing was working. She'd get a little better, go home, and then come right back, sicker than before. Nobody could figure out why. And then they finally solved the mystery with something really simple: a swab from inside her nose. And there it was, the smoking gun. The lab found the exact same nasty bacteria that was causing her life-threatening sepsis was just living in her nose. Her compulsive picking was basically opening a door for this bacteria to invade her body over and over again. And this right here is the absolute most important lesson from her story. The antibiotics couldn't fix the problem on their own. The only way they finally broke that terrifying cycle of infection was by addressing the root cause. They got her help to stop the compulsive nose picking. Treating the behavior wasn't just a good idea, it literally saved her life. So how do you do it? How do you break a cycle that powerful? We've seen the problem, the mechanism, the dangers. The great news is there is a clear, proven path for treatment. The absolute key to successful treatment is remembering that you have to tackle both sides of the problem at once. You can't just focus on the mind or just focus on the body. It really takes a team approach to get it done. And this framework shows you exactly what that team looks like. Think of it like a three-pronged attack. You have a psychologist using therapies to break the actual behavioral habit. You might have a psychiatrist prescribing meds to handle the underlying anxiety or OCD that's fueling the fire. And then you have an ENT or a dermatologist who gives you topical creams or sprays to actually heal the inside of the nose. That healing part is crucial because it removes the physical triggers, those scabs, that keep the whole cycle going. The main psychological tool is something called habit reversal training, and it's super practical. Step 1 is awareness. You just start paying attention and figuring out when and why you do it. Step 2 is stimulus control. You change your environment to make it harder. For example, maybe you wear gloves when you're watching TV. And step 3 is the competing response. You learn to do something else with your hands when you feel the urge, like clenching your fist until that feeling passes. So let's bring it all home. What's the bottom line for you? It's simple. If this habit is causing you any kind of real stress, if it's eating up a lot of your time, or if it's causing any physical harm, like frequent scabs or nosebleeds, those are the signals. It's time to talk to someone. And the first step isn't scary at all. You just start by bringing it up with your family doctor. I want to end with this quote directly from the medical research because it just says everything so perfectly. This isn't about being weak or having no willpower. We're talking about a complex medical condition, and getting help for it is a medical necessity, not a character flaw. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, right? We just saw how a simple thing we might dismiss as a bad habit can actually be a sign of something much deeper going on. So it kind of makes you wonder, what other little habits that we hide or feel ashamed of might actually be trying to tell us something important?